And welcome to the American Warrior Radio, 1300 on your AM dial, WMEL, and online at 1300.
This is Soldier Hard. You'll hear in a minute.
Sponsored by AVET Project. Can I live again? I don't even know it's real. It was horrifying life on the battlefield. Seen a lot of soldiers down on the front lines. Bombs going off when we drive by. Can I live again? I don't even know it's real. It was horrifying life on the battlefield. Seen a lot of soldiers down on the front lines. Bombs going off when we drive by. Yeah, you got questions? Darren and Glenn have answers. Pick up the phone and give them a call. Tell them Soldier I sent you. 321-631-1300.
Welcome to a special Easter weekend edition of American Warrior Radio, the place to be for news, notes, interviews, and current events for all issues military and veteran related. If you or someone you know has ever worn the uniform of the U.S. Coast Guard, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, National Guard, or Reserves, you've come to the right place. American Warrior Radio, right here on the Talk to Me station, AM 1300 WMEL. And folks, we are online worldwide at 1300WMEL.com, sponsored by AVET Project. This program, as you know, all you regular listeners of American Warrior Radio, is all about supporting our troops and their families, both past and present. So please get comfortable, grab a beverage, and don't forget that all-important pen and paper, because Glenn and I are always efforting to bring you important information that you can use and share with others. Glenn's looking at me right now. He's saying, efforting, that's not even a word. I like the word.
Yeah, I don't know where it came from, but it's okay.
Hey, y'all know me. I'm Garen Cohn. I'm an Air Force veteran, retired legal advocate for veterans, and founder of AVET Project. But you also know that I never fly through the airwaves alone.
Good morning. I'm Glenn McGuffey, retired Air Force and retired manager of the Brevard County Veteran Services team, where it was my honor for 22 plus years to help our veterans and their eligible family members get the VA benefits earned by our veteran service to this country. And I tell you, it's not an easy thing to do by yourself, nor would I recommend that you do it by yourself. And we'll talk a little more about that as the program goes along. But we got a great show today.
We sure
and
do.
As usual, Garen's got a few things to kick it off with in terms of information for you.
Well, I'm just kind of cleaning my teeth right now because we all enjoyed some awesome bagels from Bagel World off South Patrick in Satellite Beach. Thanks to you all. You do a great job with those bagels, and they are delicious. So if you get a chance, stop by there and grab some cool bagels and some coffee. Hey, we do have a lot going on today, so let's just hit the ground running. We want to speak first about Space Coast Community Law School. This is the free legal seminars, Glenn, and when are they held? Every Thursday?
Yeah, every Thursday, and they're in what would be Brevard County Building D, Delta, and that's the last one down the parking lot as you turn in, coming down there. And
State Attorney's Office.
Yeah, State Attorney's Office, and that's a change from previous years. So if you're attending again this year from a previous year, it's not in the courthouse anymore. And it's once a week, and runs from now, this period of time, through June 4th of this year. And what's up next, Garen?
Well, first I have to mention that the opening salvo, the opening seminar, and these are free legal seminars covering a wide variety of topics. We had Britta Hawkins from Telfer, Faraday, Anderson, and Hawkins. She's been behind this from the beginning for many years now, bringing this free, that's our favorite word, right, Glenn?
Free
legal information. How often do you get to listen to an attorney and maybe even, grab a couple questions or so with them for free? Doesn't happen. Well, the term started last Thursday, and it was about the origin and extent of free speech in the U.S. There were some 45 plus people registered and showed up, and Britta just texted me. It was a phenomenal seminar. Okay, like Glenn said, every Thursday from here on out through June. The next one on April 9th covers the Fourth Amendment and marijuana laws. Okay, this is the search and seizure stuff and all about marijuana. If you're interested, or if you supported or you didn't support the recent effort to get marijuana, at least on a medical basis, legalized here in Florida, you might find this this particular seminar interesting, and the presenter is none other than Robert Anderson, Esquire, with Telfer Faraday, Anderson, and Hawkins. So you don't want to miss that, and there's so many more. And the thing is, Glenn, we want to encourage everybody to go online and register. It's simple. The website is
www.sccls.com. And you may be curious as to when this is held, and that's at 6 to 8 in the evening, 1800 to 2000 for those who are still so military inclined. I used to have some clients, and I just assumed everybody used military time, and it would be surviving spouses or dependents and that kind of stuff, and they wouldn't know what the heck I was talking about. So I always got a kick out of that.
Exactly. Go online, sccls.com. Sierra, Charlie, Lima, Sierra.com, and register. When you get there, you'll get this booklet if you haven't attended prior. You get all of the little programs and a pen. It's just an awesome opportunity for you to learn and interact with people that are in the know regarding a variety of legal issues. So don't forget that, sccls.com. We want to get going on that. And right now, we are thrilled to have in studio with us a gentleman that's serving our country currently in the Coast Guard. So go ahead, Vince, and cue the music for a bosun's call. We have with us this morning the commander, the captain of the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Confidence, Commander Jeff Yarsh. Welcome, brother.
It's good to be here in the wild blue yonder, right?
Yeah, well, okay. You wear blue. You guys have blue fatigues.
That's
Bunch
right.
of blue suitors, right? Right, Glenn?
That's right.
But honestly, we had you on, it's been a little while ago, while you guys were underway out there in the Caribbean.
Right.
And that was a special treat. We love that because our audience doesn't get a glimpse into what you guys and gals are doing out there. So it's really cool to bring that kind of perspective. But it's neat to have you in studio today because you got a couple other things that you want to tell us about. But just kind of as a refresher, how long have you been the captain of the Coast Guard cutter Confidence now?
Since August 15th of last year, so not quite a year yet. And it's been
Enjoying?
flying by.
Yeah, I'm sure it has. What's the standard tour length as a captain of a ship?
2 years. 2 years.
Okay, and right now you're back. You're not on the water, so what's going on with the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Confidence? How old is that ship, first of all?
Coming up on 49 years old this year, so
Wow.
at my 2-year mark, at the point where I'll get relieved, it'll be 50th birthday of the ship, so we might have to find a way to celebrate that as well.
I should hope
I'm
so.
sure.
So what's going on with the cutter Confidence right now?
Maintenance, all maintenance right now. Got to keep these old girls alive, so for the age of the vessel, you can just imagine how much stuff there is to do to go ahead and keep it afloat. All the challenges that go with finding parts and all the materials that you need, given that some of the original manufacturers of the parts and machinery on board are no longer in business. And right now, it's mostly a preservation type effort. There's a lot of cosmetic work that's getting done, but there also is some machinery work that's being done as well, particularly on our propellers and some of the other gear on board. But
How big's the prop on that bad boy?
I don't know the exact diameter of the prop. Not a spec I've committed to memory, but I would say that you're probably looking at 12 to 13 feet, roughly speaking. So don't quote me on that.
But that's a big old screw.
Yeah.
And so it's getting some updates. How big is the cutter again?
210 feet length overall. And not very big when you're in the middle of a storm. Let's put it that way. It doesn't matter which direction the season winds are coming from at that point in the game.
Well, give us an example during your last, and you guys call them patrols. It's
Patrol
not
or
like,
deployment, either one.
okay,
Yeah.
all right. Anything interesting happen? Did you encounter any bad weather? How's the ship handle that kind of stuff?
We got lucky weather-wise, for the last deployment. For the most part, there were some snotty days out there. The last deployment, we spent 45 days patrolling the Florida Straits in between Cuba and the southern coast of Florida. And primary focus was on migrant interdiction operations. We were looking for any Cuban nationals maybe who were thinking about taking to the sea, trying to get entry into the United States. And those sanctions are still in effect. And we definitely encountered some on snotty days as it was. And I would say at worst we saw 15 to 20 footers at best, for our top estimates, and that's enough to make things hairy, especially when you got to lower the small boat and try to extract people out of the water. It's hairy enough just trying to lower your own guys in our small boat. So you got to be pretty diligent about how you go about it.
So what about that, though? Because we've noticed that there is a normalization of relations between the United States and Cuba, but your job, your purpose out there in that particular role remains the same?
Remains the same. There's no substantive change yet to U.S. immigration policy, that at least that has trickled down to our deployment status. So for that particular deployment, our mission was very clear, cut, and dry. If we were to have encountered any migrants at sea, interdict them, provide them safe haven and sanctuary temporarily on board, Confidence.
When you're already crowded.
Yeah, but we've got a nice big flight deck, and we put a tent up there, and we've got blankets that we can go ahead and provide, and meals that we furnish. So we try to make it as comfortable as we can for them within reason. But like I wrote in the newsletter that you've received, it's actually, in my opinion, it's one of the tougher missions that we do, because there's a real variety of things that you're called upon as a service member to do. You've got to enforce the U.S. law, which at the time is a pretty rigid stance that anybody that is interdicted out at sea, more likely than not, when the Customs Immigration Service officials rule in, the chances are probably greater that they're going to wind up back in Cuba, but you just never know. And
you mean versus asylum?
Correct.
Political refugees.
Yeah,
or
and there are asylum hearings. They do get an interview with people while we're out there at sea, and we embark those people on board out at sea, and those interviews happen on the decks of the Confidence, and they make their decisions and their determinations through their normal channels.
Wait a minute, the INS comes onto your ship to do the interviews?
They do. And they've got a partnership with the sector, the Coast Guard sector that's down there in Key West, and those guys were great, no problems. We loved having them on board, sailed again with them in a heartbeat. And but they've got their process that they follow for making their determinations about whether or not somebody can maybe gain entry into the States and somebody who gets turned back to Cuba. And I can't speak to those because I'm not aware of them, so I'd just be speculating. But bottom line, our mission at that point in time is simply to provide transport and safe haven until that final disposition is arranged. And at least for all the ones that we encountered, during that 45-month trip, everybody was brought back to Cuba. And so again, it's a tougher mission because again, you've got to take a hard focus on the law that you're enforcing, but there's also real people that are there too. And when you put it in perspective, all they're looking for is the same thing that my great-parents or great-grandparents were looking for. But times change, the laws change, the dynamics are different, and I just remain focused on my mission and my crew.
Exactly. And
we were talking about some are brought back to Cuba. Who brings them back to Cuba? How's that process? Y'all don't bring them back to Cuba, do you?
It can vary. What I can speak to, personally, is that for the chosen location of, we call it repatriation, when those migrants are brought back to Cuba, our Confidence being its size, we pass those migrants off to smaller patrol boats, and Sector Key West has a couple fast response cutters. They're some of our newest cutters that we've got in the Coast Guard, just coming off the assembly lines, and they're about 157 feet. And
these are the stealthy looking ones?
Yeah, they're pretty slick.
Yeah.
And so we'll pass the migrants off to them, and then they'll liaison with some Cuban maritime officials, and then the final transport ashore will be arranged between those two vessels.
Okay.
So I haven't actually witnessed that process. I mean, because it's just that's not part of our job as a bigger cutter.
Right. So you would intercept them, house them, bring the INS team together. They do their stuff, then you offload them, and then you're back out there doing the same thing.
But it could all change. I mean, that I'm just giving you what I witnessed at the time for that that patrol, and it could. You just never know what tactics are going to be employed. So
stay flexible.
Yes, Semper Paratus.
Exactly. Yes. What Semper Paratus? That's the motto for the
Always
Coast Guard.
ready.
There you go. I like that. You hear Semper Semper Fi, Semper Fidelis, Coast Guard is Semper Paratus. All right, when are you going to get back underway? And again, we're talking with Commander Jeff Yarish, the captain of the U.S. Coast Guard Cutter Confidence. So what's next?
Right around June 8th is our next scheduled deployment. For OPSEC reasons, you know how it goes. I can't get into what we'll be doing or where we'll be going, but just another one of our statutory missions that we'll be looking to enforce.
And crew size again on the Cutter Confidence?
Billeted for right around 75 people, but given training, given other leave statuses, just other things going on, we could wind up sailing short of that or more than that at the time. So. But right around 75.
And that's a mix of men and women?
Predominantly men. The enlisted crew that we've got berthing available for is all men. But our officers, core the wardroom, we definitely have availability for women. Right now, I've got 2 female officers aboard, and one of them will actually transfer out this summer. We'll get another one in, and it's great having the diversity aboard.
Oh, for sure. And that's the thing. If people. When we talk about combat roles, Glenn, we know that that's been challenged now and that it's going to be opened up towards women. But the Coast Guard has always had availability for women to take on leadership roles. Well, for a long time.
Yes,
not always,
for a long
but...
time. Not always, but for a long time. And, for me personally, with my own experiences, it's been a great melting pot. And I've loved it, just because of the fact that with 2 older sisters and the baby of 3, I like having that diversity around, because I credit my sisters for always keeping me on the straight and narrow. And they call to mind one of my female officers on board right now, who I think is earned the nickname Mom. And she's good for keeping us on the straight and narrow. We love having her.
Awesome.
So.
And AVAT Project has worked with a number of your crew, and we're just really... Listen, folks, we're blessed to have the Coast Guard that we do because you're the smallest service, the smallest sea service, and the smallest service, and yet your mission seems to continue to expand. It's getting bigger and bigger.
It feels that way sometimes.
Yeah. Well, you're doing an awesome job, and we really appreciate that. We're running out of time, but I want you to share, because you mentioned the newsletter, which is neat, and it's available to everybody, right?
Well, we don't generally... publish it online, but we certainly send it out to a big bang list, and I'll look into possibly getting it online.
Yeah, so if somebody out there listening right now on American Warrior Radio wanted to find out more about you and the Coast Guard Cutter Confidence, where can they go?
They can go to www.uscg.mil or just do a generic Google search for USCGC Confidence, and you'll come up with a link to our webpage, and there's some generic information on there.
Yeah, okay. Well, my producer's handing me notes here. Coast Guard safety, and I know as a ship captain, you've done a lot of different things in your career, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But now as a captain, safety is always paramount out there on the water. And we're talking about, Glenn, you mentioned while we were just coming on the air, the gentleman that just got rescued by the Coast Guard after being afloat for 66 days.
Yeah, and his, as the story goes, from what I've heard, the boat had flipped over, turned upside down. It was a sailboat, and fortunately he hung on to the boat. And isn't that the important way to go?
That's what I would recommend. That is a life platform for all intents and purposes. If that boat is still floating, and let's just say in the worst case scenario it's capsized and is now bottom side up, and it's showing signs of being stable still in the water, don't leave it. It is a visual marker. If you're really lucky, maybe the hull will actually be a lighter color, and that means it's going to be more visible to any aircraft that might be flying overhead, or maybe a larger vessel that has a larger height of eye, as we call it, a bridge that's located way off the water. And I mean, some of the Cuban migrants that we actually took aboard Confidence during the last patrol, they were first interdicted by a large container ship, about 800 feet, and so when we embarked them, they were tied off to that container ship. And another set of migrants, they were actually found by a Disney cruise liner. So you just never know who is gonna find you and stick near your boat. It's a larger signal.
Exactly, and that's coming from a man that knows what he's talking about. Again, Commander Jeff Yarish, U.S. Coast Guard Cutter Confidence, joining us for a bosun's call. Thank you, sir, for joining us today and for your service.
Well, thanks for having me, fellas. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. We'll be talking down the road, I know. Maybe next time you're underway, you can chime in. We'd love that,
Yeah, I would love to do that again.
Outstanding.
Yeah. Before we let you go, real quick, if you have any of your people that own a home in Brevard County, to include yourself, and they were deployed for more than a month total in last calendar year, there's a tax exemption on the books for an extra tax exemption. So they need to go to the tax office and let them know that and apply for that exemption.
Okay, thanks for the tip. I'll pass the word to the guys.
And
sure.
for everybody listening, of course.
Exactly. That's important. Well, Glenn, we've got Soldier Hard and Light Up the Darkness segment coming up after the break, but we have to hit on this because there's some really significant changes, people, happening to the way the Veterans Administration is adjudicating claims, all right? And give us a high side pass, Glenn, because I don't see it as a good thing, but it's supposedly going to make it more easy for them to work the claims.
Well, another reason to get an accredited representative occurred on March 24th. Effective that day, the VA put into effect 4 or 5 different standardized forms for different types of claims that you might file. So no longer can you just write something on a piece of paper and send it to the VA and they'll consider that the start of a claim. They'll mail you back the forms and everything else. They're not going to do that anymore. First off, if you're submitting a reopened claim, there's a separate form for that has to be used. They won't accept a reopened claim on the form that everybody calls VA stationary as a statement of claimant form. No longer acceptable. Then if you're filing a notice of disagreement, that's the first step of an appeal. If you disagree with a decision, there's a separate form for that. And if you file it on that statement of claimant form or any other kind of written message, they're not going to accept it. And unfortunately, when they're not going to accept something, it may take them 2 or 3 months to tell you they're not going to accept it, and you could be losing effective date time that whole period of time. They also now have changed what was called an informal claim. The whole purpose of filing an informal claim was to protect the start date and give you a year to collect all the evidence and that you needed to make your claim well-grounded, make your claim winnable. That's no longer acceptable. There's a form now, and they changed the term, and it's called intent to file. So I don't know what's going to happen to the ones in the pipeline. I'm a little worried about that. And we're going to be talking with Allison Hickey, the Director of Benefits here.
We're not going to beat her up, but we're going to get some questions answered.
Exactly. And these are the kind of questions we need. My concern is all this was just thrown out there and made effective like a week from when I heard about it. And I doubt any veteran ever heard about it. And unaccredited representatives probably don't know beans about it. So you need to get an accredited representative.
That's the takeaway right now. Don't do this on your own. Don't even go to VONAP or the computer. You need to get in to see somebody that is accredited to represent you before the VA.
Yeah, VONAP's the VA online claim form, which I'm not real thrilled with, but that's another day. But you can reach me at Glenn, GLENN, at AVETproject, altogether, AVETproject.org. And I'll arrange an appointment to get with you. I may send you an email or two to find out what the issue or issues are and what kind of evidence we need.
Okay, folks, don't go anywhere. American Warrior Radio is going to come right back at you right after the break. Please, we'll be right back. Awesome job, man. Awesome job, man.
Good deal.
Yeah. Fun goes by like that.
I know.